I just called it Deathrun. I'm not even trying to spell scissors however he spells it. Like, I know how to spell real scissors, but not that Fortnite guy. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Alright, Daniel's gotta get ready. He's gotta be strong and he's gotta be fast. Welcome back, Shadow. I'll be a hero. Ah. Nightmare, do me a favor. Can you put in the code again? Can you re-put it in the chat if you don't mind, sir? I'll be a hero. Thank you. Is that the first one? I'm gonna assume it is. Oh god. Alright, I got this, boys. Creative. Alright, so, chat. You know I'm gonna be quiet for when it's not for an hour. So, just be ready. I'm gonna be silent. Just gonna be Daniel reading. Chat, you're gonna be stuck staring at the screen for an hour. Is there any specific skin you want to see? Anything specific right now? Or can I just do whatever? Go to featured. I got you. Because if anything, I don't really give a shit. But is there any specific skin you guys want to see or no? Or you guys don't give a shit? Red Knight? Okay. Where the fuck is that real? Let me get some customization going on here. Hey, we'll use this one. You'll do that. That's fine. All right. It's creative, right? I'm gonna assume it's creative. Let me open this bitch up. Yo, what is it? Go to fit. I'm just gonna click launch. I'm gonna figure this out. We got like what? Yeah, we got like 10 minutes to figure this out, chat. Let's put our brains together. I gotta set up the death run or open it up or some shit.
Well, let's meet Andrew. We're just gonna meet you now, okay?
That's
so
fine.
It's easier.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
I gotta figure this out with chat
Okay.
at the moment. All right, chat. It's me and you. Gotta put our brains together, make this work. Cause Nightmare already knows how to do this. So, well, go to featured maps. Got you, bro. Got you, base. All right. Do we just go to any featured one? Don't invite me, Quartermare. Don't. Are you seriously gonna spam me right now? Okay, you did good. Can I go to any featured one, or does it have to be a specific one? Nightmare. You should say something. So any of them? Okay, cool. So we'll just go with this guy. No. Cool. Where is this code? Okay, let's see. Stop inviting me. Dude, I gotta figure this out real quick. I hope this guy doesn't spam invite me or someone appear offline in a second. Oh, chat. I think we did it, boys. Daniel, are you here?
Yeah.
Alright, good. Turn up your mic a little bit if you can, your mic volume. Oh, fuck. We did it, boys. Can I join and play? Chat, yeah, you guys can join if you want. There's only like 2 of you here. If you guys want to join, go ahead. Yeah, you can join me in my suffering. That goes for both of you, because I know you guys are here. But we won't be able to talk. I'm sorry to break it, because I'm going to be, what's it called, doing this. So, if you guys want to join, feel free. I should have probably put that in the title, but whatever. Whatever. You can't today? Well, you can watch it. The lobby isn't on public? How the fuck? Okay. Do I have to set that like in the starting menu? Can I do it here? So we can only invite you? Can I make like my own server so I can invite people, or how does it work? 'Cause I have no fucking clue how this shit works. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I mean, if you invite me, you could probably just put in the code, right? I mean, if you want to invite me and you got it set up like the death run or what are the same code and shit, I'm down. Starting menu? Alright, I got you. Clap it up, boys. You have to leave the match to change it? Alright. We are on this shit. We are on this shit, boys. Yes, yeah, that's why I get. Okay, let me see this shit. Let's. Oh, do you want to just invite me, Shadow? Because I don't care which one, as long as we just. Because we're not gonna be talking anyways. I'm just gonna be fucking doing my own thing. Sweet. Alright, you know what to do. Just set it up. There we go. Sweet. Sweet, 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 sweet. Daniel, you might want to let your friends know if Tyler, if he's interested, that you're going to be starting in like a couple minutes. If he wants to hear it, Daniel. Dun 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 dun. By the way, sorry if one or two of my friends randomly joined. Whatever. I don't care. So I don't think you can really team kill on this thing. Or you can like fuck each other over. If that happens. Whatever. Can you not mute your mic for 5 minutes? What do you mean? Was my mic muted? Yo, is my mic muted? It's not. Am I crazy? Chat, you guys can hear me, right? I wanted to make sure. That's weird. Alright. Daniel, you ready? Alright. Oh my god, what the fuck is this? Alright. Wait, Daniel, is my stream open for you? You can hear me, Tyler? Alright, sweet. Okay. Daniel, you ready to go? Dan, you ready? What are you talking about? Too hard for you? What are you talking about? I don't know what he's talking about. Daniel, you ready to go?
Yep, time to force everyone to hear my book.
Alright, chat.
I was waiting for.
I'm going to be, if anyone's new in here, I'm going to be silent for an hour. Daniel's going to read his book. We're going to do the Scissors Death Run or whatever. I've never done this before. I've never seen it before. So, wish me luck. Daniel, take the stage. I will see you guys. Yeah, I mean, I'll talk to you guys in chat and stuff, but wish us luck, and Daniel, have fun.
Alright, is everybody ready? Alright, the stream can hear me. We're gonna start. You're all gonna force to hear me read. Alright, boys and girls, chapter 1. It was now or never. If Fletcher didn't make this kill, he would go hungry tonight. Dusk was fast approaching. He was already running late. He needed to make his way back to the village sooner the gates would close. If that happened, he would either have to bribe the guards with money he didn't have or take the chances in the woods overnight. The young elk had just finished rubbing its antlers against a tall pine, scraping the soft velvet that coated them to leave the sharp tines beneath. Huh. From its small size and stature, Fletcher could tell it was juvenile, sporting its first set of antlers. It was a fine specimen with glossy fur and bright, intelligent eyes. Fletcher felt almost ashamed to start the game, Andrew. They want the game started. Jesus Christ. Fletcher felt almost ashamed to hunt such a majestic beast, yet he was already adding up the value in his head. The thick coat would do well when the fur traders came by, especially as it was now winter. It would probably make at least 5 shillings. The antlers were in good condition if a little small. They might fetch 4 shillings if he was lucky. It was the meat he craved the most, gammy red venison that would drip sizzling fat into his cooking fire. A thick mist hung in the heavy air, coating Fletcher in a thin layer of dew. The forest was unusually still. Normally the wind rattled the branches, allowing him to stalk through the undergrowth unheard. Now he barely allowed himself to breathe. He unslung his bow and knocked an arrow to it. It was his best arrow, the shaft straight and true, the fletching from good goose feathers rather than the cheap turkey feathers he bought in the market. He took a shallow breath and drew back on the bowstring. It was slippery on his fingers. He had coated in the goose fat to protect it from the moisture in the air. The point swam in and out of focus as he centered it to the elk. Fletcher was crouched a good 100 feet away, hidden in the tall grass. A difficult shot, but the lack of wind brought its own rewards. No gust to jar the arrow on its flight. He breathed and shot in one fluid motion, embracing the moment of stillness in body and mind. Crap, I lost my place already. He breathed and shot one fluid motion, embracing the moment of stillness in body and mind that he had learned from bitter and hungry experience. He heard the dull thrum of the bowstring jarring and then a thud as the arrow hit home. It was a beautiful shot, taking elk through the chest into the lungs and heart. The animal collapsed and convulsed, thrashing on the ground, its hoofs drumming a tattoo on the earth in its death throes. He sprinted towards his prey and drew a skinning knife from the slim scabbard at his thigh. But the stag was dead before he got to it. A good clean kill. That's what Burden would have said. Killing was always messy. The bloody froth bubbling from the elk's mouth was testament to that. He removed the arrow carefully and was happy to see the shaft had not snapped, nor had the flint point chipped into the elk's ribs. Although he was Fletcher by name, the amount of time he spent biting his arrows frustrated him. He preferred the work burden would occasionally give him, hammering and shaping iron in the forge. Perhaps it was the heat or the way his uh, muscles ached deliciously after a hard day's work, or maybe it was the coin that weighed down in his pockets when he was paid afterwards. The young elk was heavy, but he was not far from the village. The antlers made for good handle holds, and the carcass slipped easily enough over the wet grass. His only concern would be the wolves or even the wildcats now. It was not unknown for them to steal a hunter's meal, if not his life, as he brought his prize back home. He was hunting on the ridge of the Beartooth Mountain, so called for their distinctive twin peaks that looked like two canines. The village lay on the jagged ridge between them, the only path up to it on the steep and rocky trail in clear view from the gates. A thick wooden palisade surrounded the village, with small watchtowers at intervals along the top, and not been attacked for a long time. Only once in Fletcher's 15 years, in fact. Even then, a small band of thieves rather than an orc raid, as I was as unlikely as that was this far north in the jungles. Despite this, the village council took security very seriously and getting in after a ninth bell was always a nightmare for newcomers, for new and latecomers. Fletcher maneuvered the animal's carcass onto the thick grass that grew beside the rocky path. He didn't want to damage the coat. It was the most valuable part of the elk. Furs were one of the few resources the village had to trade, earning its name pelt. It was it was heavy going on the path and treacherous underfoot, even more so in the dark. The sun had already disappeared behind the ridge. He grit his teeth and hurried, stumbling and cursing as he grazed his knees on the gravel. His heart sank when he reached the front gates. They were closed, the lanterns above lit for their night-long vigil. The lazy guards had closed up early, eager for a drink in the village tavern. "You lazy sods, the ninth bell hasn't even rung yet," Fletcher cursed, and let the elk's antlers fall to the ground. "Let me in. I'm not sleeping out here just because you can't wait to get a drink yourselves, stupid." He slammed his boot into the door. Now, Fletcher, keep it down. "There's good people sleeping in here," came a voice from above. It was Daedric. He leaned now over the parapet above Fletcher, his large, moonish face grinning nastily. Fletcher grimaced. Of all the guards who could have been on duty tonight, it had to be Daedric Cavell, the worst of the bunch. He was 15, the same age as Fletcher, but he fancied himself a full-grown man. Fletcher did not like Daedric. The guardsman was a bully, always looking for an excuse to exercise his authority. "I sent the day watch off early tonight, you see. I take my duties very seriously. Can't be too careful with the traders arriving tomorrow. You never know what kind of riffraff will be sneaking about outside." He chuckled at his jib. "Let me, let me in, Daedric. You and I both know the gate should be open until ninth bell," said Fletcher. Even as he spoke, he heard the bell begin its sonorous knell, echoing dully in the valleys below. "What was that? I can't hear you," yelled Daedric, holding a hand up to his ear, theoretically. "I said let me in, you dolt. This is illegal. I'll have to report you if you don't open the gates this minute," he shouted, flaring up at the pale face above the palisade. "Well, you could do that, and certainly wouldn't begrudge you to do your right too. In all likelihood, we would both be punished, and any that wouldn't do anyone any good. So why don't we cut a deal here? You leave me that elk, and I'll save you trouble sleeping in the forest tonight." "Shove it up your ass," Fletcher spat in disbelief. This was blatant blackmail. "Come now, Fletcher, be reasonable. The wolves and the wildcats will come prowling, and even a bright campfire won't keep them away in the winter. You can either leg it when they arrive, or stay and be an appetizer. Either way, even if you do last until morning, you'll be walking through those gates empty-handed. Let me help you out." Daedric's voice was almost friendly as he was doing Fletcher a favor. "Go, Andrew. You got that." Fletcher's face burned red. This was beyond anything he had experienced before. Unfairness was common in Pelt, and Fletcher had long ago accepted that in the world of haves and have-nots. He was definitely the later, and now this latter, but the spoiled brat, a son to one of the richest men in the village, no less, was stealing from him. "Is that it, then?" Fletcher asked, his voice low and angry. "You think you're very clever, don't you? It's just a logical conclusion to a situation in which I happen to be in the beneficiary," Daedric said, flicking his blond fringe from his eyes. It was well known that Daedric was privately tutored, flaunting his education with flowery speech. It was his father's hopes that he would be a judge one day, eventually going to a law house in one of the largest cities in Holman. "You forgot one thing," Fletcher growled. "I would much rather sleep out in the woods than watch you take my kill." "Ha, I think I call your bluff. I've a long night ahead of me. I have a long night ahead of me. It will be fun to watch you try and fend off the wolves," Daedric said with a laugh. Fletcher knew Daedric was baiting him, but it didn't stop his blood boiling. He gulped the anger down, though it still simmered at the back of his mind. "I won't give you the elk. There's 5 shillings in the fur alone, and the meat will be worth another 3. Just let me in and I'll forget about reporting you. We can put this whole thing behind us, Fletcher suggests, swallowing his pride with difficulty. I'll tell you what, I, I can't come away completely empty-handed. That wouldn't do now, would it? But since I'm feeling generous, if you give me those antlers you neglected to mention, I'll call it a night, and we can both get what we want. Fletcher stiffened in the nerve of this suggestion. He struggled for a moment and then let it go. 4 shillings were worth a night in his own bed, and to Daedric it was nothing but pocket change. He groaned and took out a skinning knife. It was razor sharp. It was not designed for cutting through antlers. He hate to mutilate the deer, but he would have to take its head. A minute later, and with some sawing of the vertebrae, the head was in his hands, dripping blood all over his moccasins. He grimaced, then held it up for Daedric to see. All right, Daedric, come and get it, Fletcher said, brandishing the glistening trophy. Throw it up, throw it up here, said Daedric. I don't trust you. Hand it over. What? Cried Fletcher in disbelief. Throw it up now, or the deal is off. I can't be bothered to wrestle it from you and get blood all over my uniform, Daedric threatened. Fletcher groaned and hurled it up, splattering his own tunic with blood as he did so. It flew over Daedric's head and clattered on the parapet. He made no move to get it. Nice doing business with you, Fletcher. I'll see you tomorrow. Have fun camping in the woods, he said cheerily. Wait, shouted Fletcher. What about our deal? I held up my end of the bargain, Fletcher. I said I'd call it a night if we'd both get what we wanted. And you said earlier you would rather sleep in the woods than give me your elk. So there you go. You get what you want, and I get what I want. You really should pay attention to wordings in an agreement, Fletcher. It's the first lesson a judge learns. His face began to withdraw from the parapet. That wasn't the deal. You let me in, you little worm, Fletcher roared, kicking at the door. No, no, my bed's waiting for me back at home. I can't say same for you, though. Daedric laughed as he turned away. You're on watch tonight. You can't go home, yelled Fletcher. If Daedric left his watch, Fletcher could get his revenge by reporting him. He had never considered himself a snitch, but for Daedric he would make an exception. Oh, it's not my watch, Daedric's voice shouted faintly as he descended the palisade steps. I never said it was. I told Jakov I'd keep an eye out while he used the privy. He should be back any minute. Fletcher clenched his fist, almost unable to comprehend the extension of Daedric's deceit. He looked at the headless carcass by his ruined shoes as the fury rose up in him like a bile in his throat. He had only one thought in his mind. This was not the end of it, not by a long shot. Oh god, my phone isn't even charging. Stupid phone. Let me get this fixed. Okay. 1 second. Technical difficulties. Alright, just give me a second, chat. That's better. Okay. Chapter 2. Get out of bed, Fletcher. This is the only time of year I actually need you up on time. I can't mind the market stall and shoe the pack horses at the same time. Burden's ruddy face swam into view as Fletcher opened his eyes. Fletcher groaned and pulled his furs over his head, and it had been a long night. Jakov had made him wait outside for an hour before he let him in, on the condition that Fletcher bought him a drink next time they were in the tavern. Before Fletcher had a chance to bed down, he had to gut and skin the elk as well as trim the meat and hang it by the hearth to dry. He only allowed himself one juicy slice half cooked on the fire before he lost patience and crammed it into his mouth. In the winter, it was always best to preserve the meat for later. Fletcher didn't know when his next meal was coming at the best of times. Now, Fletcher, and clean yourself up. You stink like a pig. I don't want you driving customers away. Nobody wants to buy from a vargant. Burden yanked his furs away and strawed out of Fletcher's tiny room at the back of the forge. Fletcher winced at the loss of his covers and sat up. His room was warmer than he expected. Burden must have been at the hot forge all night preparing for trading day. Fletcher had long ago learned to sleep through the clanging of metal, the roar of bellows, the sizzles of red-hot weapons were dosed. I'm watching. Oh, yeah, Andrew died. Shrugged through the forge room and the small well outside, where Vernon drew his dowsing water. He hauled up the bucket with only a moment's hesitation, pouring the freezing water over his head. His tunic and trousers were soaked as well, but since they were still covered in blood from the night before, it would probably do them some good. Several more bucketfuls and a brisk scrub with a pumice stone later, Fletcher was back in the forge room, shivering and clutching his arms to his chest. Come on, then. Let's have a look at you. Vernon stood in the doorway of his own room, the light from the hearth illuminating his long red hair. He was by far the largest man in the village, long hours of beating metal in his forge giving him broad shoulders and a barrel-like chest. George Fletcher was small and wiry for his age. Just as I thought, you need a shave. My aunt Gerla had a thicker mustache, and you get rid of that wispy fuzz until you grow a real one like mine. Burden's eyes twinkled as he twirled the red handlebar that bristled above his grizzly beard. Fletcher knew he was right. Today, the traders were coming, and they would often bring their city-born daughters with their long pleated skirts and ringletted hair, though he knew from bitter experience that they would turn up their noses at him. It wouldn't hurt to be at least presentable today. Off you go. I'll lay out the clothes you're going to wear whilst you shave, and no complaints. The more professional you look, the better our merchandise does. Fletcher trudged back outside into the freezing cold. The forge lay right to the village gates, with the wooden palisade edged just a few feet from the back wall of Fletcher's room. A mirror and small wash basin lay discarded nearby. Fletcher removed his skinning knife and trimmed away in fledgling black whiskers. Before scrutinizing his face in the mirror, he was pale, which was not surprising this far north in Holland. His summers were short and pelt, with a brief but happy few weeks spent with the other boys in the forest, trickling trout in the streams and roasting hazelnuts by a fire. It was the one time when Fletcher did not feel like an outsider. His face was harsh, with sharp cheekbones and dark brown eyes that were slightly sunken. His hair was a thick, shaggy mess of black, which Burden would literally shear when it got too wild. Fletcher knew he was not ugly, but nor was he handsome compared with the rich, well-fed boys with ruddy cheeks and blond hair who populated the village. Dark hair was unusual in the northern settlements, yet since he had been abandoned in the front gates as a baby, Fletcher was not surprised. He looked nothing like the others. Just another thing to set him apart from the rest. When he returned, Fletcher saw Vernon had laid out a pale blue tunic and bright green trousers on his bed. He blanched the colors. He blanched the colors, but swallowed his comments when he saw Vernon's reminiscent stare. The clothes did not look unusual for training day. Traders were well known for their flamboyant garb. "I'll let you get dressed," said Burton with a chuckle, ducking out of the room. Fletcher knew that Burton's teasing was his way of being affectionate, so he didn't let it get to him. He had never been the talkative type, preferring his own company and thoughts. Burton had always been respectful of his privacy, but since he had been first able to speak, it was a strange relationship, the gruff, good-natured bachelor and his introvert apprentice, yet they made it work somehow. Fletcher would always be grateful that Burton took him in, when nobody else would. He had been abandoned with nothing, not even a basket or a swaddling, just a naked baby in the snow, screaming at the top of his lungs outside the gates. The snobby rich folk wouldn't take him in, nor could the poor afford to. It had been the hardest winter Pelt ever endured, and food was scarce. In the end, Burton offered to keep him, since he had been the one who had found him in the first place. He was not wealthy, but he had no mouths to feed, and he did not rely on the seasons to work, so in many ways he was ideal. Fletcher harbored deep hatred for his mother, even if he had no idea who she was. What kind of person would leave her naked baby to die in the snow? He had always wondered if it had been a girl from Pelton itself. Unable or unwilling to raise him, he would often look searchingly into the faces of women around him. Comparing their features with his own, he didn't know why he bothered. None of them looked anything like him. Fletcher's stall, now laden with shiny swords and daggers, was already set up by the main road that ran from the gate to the back of the town. His was not the only one along the way. There were more stalls heavy with meats and furs. Other wares were on display, furniture hewed from the tall pines that grew on Beartooth and silver petaled mountain flowers and pots for the gardens of the rich city housewives. There was another of Pellet's famous wares, their jackets and jerkins, prized above all others for their fine craftsmanship and stitchings. Fletcher had his eye on one jacket in particular. He sold most of it throughout the years of the other hunters, and he had managed to save over 300 shillings for this one purchase. I might just read till 9:30, chat, so Andrew can get back to Overwatch custom games or something to get his viewers back. Anyway, could see it hanging farther down, although Janet the trader, who had spent several weeks making it, had told him he could only buy it for 300 shillings if nobody had a better offer by the end of the day. The jacket was perfect. The inside was lined with downing mountain hair fur, soft and gray with peppering of hazel. The leather itself was a deep mahogany color, hardy and unblemished. It was waterproof and would not easily stain, nor would it be torn as he chased his prey through the forest brambles. It was closed by. Yeah, I don't really care, Andrew. It's whatever. Uh, closed by some tunnels, but the deep he could. Fletcher could already picture himself crouched in the rain, warm and hidden with an arrow knocked in his bow. Burden was seated behind him outside the forge beside an anvil and a pile of horseshoes. Although his weapons and armors were high quality, he had found that there was plenty of money to be made in reshoeing the packed horses for the wary traders who long journeyed to the remote villages along Beartooth who had almost just begun. Last year, traders had stopped by. Fletcher had kept busy the entire day, even sharpening their swords after his stall had been emptied. It had been a good year for selling weapons. The Halman Empire had declared war on Newfront on the northern sides of the Beartooth Mountains. The Elven clans had refused to pay their yearly tax money that the Halman Empire demanded in exchange for their protection from the Orc tribes of the southern jungles. All the way on the other side of Halman, the Empire declared a war to extract their dues, and the traders had feared elven raiding parties. In the end, it became a war of principle with a few skirmishes, but nothing more than ended in a gentleman's agreement not to escalate. There was one thing that both nations agreed on implicitly. The orcs were a true enemy. Will I have time to look around this year? Fletcher asked. I should think so. Not much call for new weaponry at the moment. Beartooth's new military may be old men and cripples, but I think the traders believe the president of troops, the solid brigands from roaming around here and attacking the convoys. The worst part, they're probably right. We won't get a lot of business from them, but at least we know there's still demand for my services from the military. Fletcher shuddered at the memory of his journey over the mountain to the nearest fort. The front lines, was a grim affair full of dead-eyed men waiting for release from their military contracts. The Elven front was the dumping ground for the men the military didn't want, the empty bellies who could no longer fight. Chafing, that was only chafing, that's what the soldiers had called it. Some considered it a blessing away from the horrors of the jungle trenches. Men died in their thousands on the Orcish front, their heads taken as trophies and left on spikes at the jungle's borders. The orcs were a savage, mindless race, dark creatures with merciless and sadistic intent. Sorry about that. Yeah, it was a different kind of horror on the elven border. A steady degradation, a slow starvation from half rations, endless drills from tired sergeants who knew nothing else to do, uninspired generals who would stay in their warm offices while the men shivered in their cots. The quartermaster had been reluctant to buy anything, but his quota needed to be filled with the supply lines over Beartooth had long been reduced to a trickle as demands of the orc front increased. The bundle of swords Fletcher had been carrying on his back since the morning were sold for far more than they were worth, leaving him with a heavy but considerable lighter load of a bag of silver shillings. He had brought muskets he could have been paid in gold souvenirs. Burden was hoping that the traders might trade firearms for swords. If that happened, he could upsell the muskets to quartermaster next season. As Fletcher lay in his burrow bunk in the barracks that night, waiting for the morning as he could return to Pelt in the light of day, he resolved that should he ever join the military, he would not allow himself to end up in such a place. You boy, move your stall back from the gates. You'll block the way for the traitors. An imperious voice snapped at him, breaking into his thoughts. It was Daedric's father, Caspar, a tall, slim man dressed in fine velvet clothing, hand stitched from purple cloth that had been delicately embroidered with gold. Glared at Fletcher as if his very existence offended him. Daedric stood behind him with a grin on his face, his hair plastered with wax into a blonde side parting. Fletcher looked at the next stall over, which was considered closer to a road than his. I won't tell you again. Do it now or I'll call the guard, Caspar barked. Fletcher looked at Burden, who shrugged his broad shoulders and gave him a nod. In the grand scheme of things, it would make no difference. If someone needed weapons, they would find them. Daedric winked and made a shooing motion with his hands. Fletcher reddened, but moved to do as Caspar asked. Daedric's time would come, but his father was an incredibly powerful man. He was a moneylender and had almost the entire village in his pocket. When a baby needed medicine from the city, Caspar was there. When the hunting season went poorly, Caspar was there. When a fire destroyed a home, Caspar was there. How could a village could barely sign how could a villager who could barely sign his own name on a lengthy contract understand the concept of compound interest or the complex numbers written above? In the end, they had all found the price of their salvation came at a cost higher than they could afford. Fletcher hated that Caspar had was revered by many in the village, despite being nothing more than a con man. As Fletcher struggled to shift the stall backward, dropping several carefully polished daggers in the dirt, the village bell began to toll. The traders had arrived. Chapter 3. All I got is for. I'm not reading for much longer, Tyler. I'm not going to go the whole hour. Began, as it always did, with the creaking of wheels and the crack of whips. The path of the slope was uneven and steep, yet the traders would push their horses to the limit in the final stretch, eager for the prime location at the end of the village main roads. Those were where the last inevitably ended up at the gate's entrance, away from the milling crowds deep inside the village. Caspar stood at the entrance and waved them through, nodding and smiling at each of the drivers who had heavy-laden wagons as they rolled through the gates. Fletcher could see the horses had been pushed hard on this journey. Their length. I need a drink anyway. Their flanks shone with a fourth froth of sweat, and their eyes with wild with exhaustion. His face broke into a guilty grin at the state of them. My phone not charging again. You lie, dun dun dun. Uh, man, I might find my spot again after I get a drink, because this is This is gonna make me lose my voice. Anyway, as the last of the wagons pulled through the gate, two men with heavy blond mustaches and peaked caps trotted into the village. Their horses were not the plow horses that pulled the wagons, but heavy chargers with wide flanks and flat-sized hooves. They tossed their bridles as they moved from the dirt path onto the uneven cobbles. Fletcher heard Burton curse behind him and grimace with sympathy. The men's dark blue uniforms and brass buttons identified them as Pinkertons, lawmakers from the city. The muskets they held in their hands left no doubt of their status. Fletcher glanced at the metal-studded trench charms, set holstered by the painters of their saddles. They could break an arm or a leg with ease. They had no qualms about doing so, for the Pinkertons were only answerable to the king. Fletcher had no idea why they were accompanying the convoy, but their presence meant that there would be little need for protection on the route. There would be a few sales at his stall that day. Ugh, Jesus. Two men looked so alike that they might have been brothers. With curling blonde hair and cold gray eyes, they dismounted, and the taller of the two strode up to Fletcher, his musket hanging loosely in his hands. "Boy, take our horses to the village stable and have them fed and watered," he said with a hard voice. Fletcher gaped at him, taken aback by the directness of the order. The man motioned at the horses as Fletcher paused, unwilling to leave the stall unattended. Let me check chat real quick. Hold up, guys. I just want to watch this death run a little bit. Still on that level, Andrew? Didn't know it was gonna be that hard. Anyway, don't mind him. He's a bit slow in the head. Casper's voice cutting in. "You don't have a village stable. My son will see to your horses. Daedric, take him to our personal stables and tell the stall boy to take extra care. But father, I want to," Daedric began, his voice wheedling. "Now, and be quick about it," Casper interrupted. Daedric reddened and flashed Fletcher a black look before taking the bridles of the two horses and leading them down the street. "So what brings the Pinkertons to Pelt? We haven't seen any new faces for several weeks. If you are chasing outlaws," Casper said, holding his hand out. The tall Pinkerton shook his hand reluctantly, forced to be still now that his horse was in Casper's care. "Our business is with the military on the Elven border. The king has expressed his desire to constrict, jeez, I cannot, constrict criminals into the army. In doing so, writing off their prison sentences. We're not even gonna get to a good part, even if I had an hour. We're investigating where the generals would be amenable to that on his behalf." Fascinating, of course. We knew that the enlistment rates had dropped recently, but this comes as a surprise. "An elegant solution to the problem," Casper said with a fixed smile. "Perhaps we can talk more about it over dinner and some brandy. Between you and me, the local inn is filthy, and we would be happy to provide you with some comfortable beds after your long journey. We would be grateful. We have traveled all the way from Carcelium and have not slept in a clean bed for almost a week." The Pinkerton admitted, doffing his cap. "Then we must draw you a bath and have a hot breakfast brought to you. My name is Casper Cavill. I'm a village elder of sorts here," Casper said, leading them down the road. Fletcher considered the news as their voices faded. Criminals being pressed into the army services was something he had never considered. Rumors had abundant. The forced conscription for all young men was right around the corner, something both worried and excited him. Conscription had been implemented in the Second Orc War centuries ago. That war had been fought over orc raiding parties that stole livestock, and slaughtered townsfolk in the fledgling Human Empire. Hundreds of villages had been wiped out before the orcs were driven back into the jungles. This time it was Human who had started it, clearing away their forests to fuel the industrial revolution that had just begun. That had been 7 years ago, and the war showed no sign of ending anytime soon. If I could forge those muskets, there would be no need to open the stall at all. Burden grumbled from behind him. Fletcher nodded in. I turned the page. In agreement, muskets were in high demand on the front line, manufactured by the dwarven artificers that lived in the bowels of Casilium. The techniques used to create their straight barrels and mechanisms were closely guarded secrets that dwarves harbored jealously. It was a lucrative business, yet the technology had been recently implemented into the military, where before the orcs could often endure a hail of arrows when they charged. The barrage of musket fire had far more stunning power. It was then Fletcher noticed a final traveler entered through the gates. He was a grizzly soldier with gray hair and an unshaven face. He wore a red and white uniform, the cloth tattered and worn, spread with the mud and the dust from the journey. Many of the brass buttons from his coat were missing or hanging loosely. He was unarmed, unusual for a member of the trading convoy, and even more so for a soldier. He had no horse or wagon, but instead led a mule who was heavily laden with saddlebags. His boots were in a sorry state, the soles worn through and flapping with each staggering step he took. Fletcher watched as he settled in the space opposite him. Handing meal to the corner post the next stall over and glaring at the vendor before he could protest. He unpacked his saddlebag, spreading out a bundle of cloth and arranging several objects upon it. The soldier was likely on his way to the elven front, cold for being too old to fight as soldier any longer, yet too incompetent to have been promoted to an officer. As if he could sense his gaze, the old man straightened and grinned at Fletcher's curiosity, showing a mouthful of missing teeth. Let me get a drink. Fletcher craned his neck to get a better look at the soldier, and his eyes widened as he saw what was for sale. It was a huge flint arrowhead the size of a man's head. The edges pinned to the create barbs that would snag in the flesh. Necklaces made from strings of teeth. Desiccated ears were untangled and laid out like the finest pendants. A rhino's horn, tipped with an iron point, was arranged at the very front of the collection. The centerpiece was a huge orc skull twice the size of a man's. It had been polished smoothly and bleached by the jungle sun, with a heavy row ridge jutting unnaturally over its eye holes. The orc's lower canines were larger than Fletcher had imagined, extending out into tusks that were around 3 inches long. They were souvenirs from the front lines, to be sold as curiosities to northern citizens, far from where the real war was being fought. Fletcher turned and looked beseechingly at Burden, who had also seen what the man had for sale. He shook his head and nodded at the stall. Fletcher sighed and turned his attention back to the arrangement of his own goods. It was going to be a long, fruitless day. What time is it? Alright, Andrew, I'm done. You can bring a stream. You can come back. That was 3 chapters. I'm done. Yeah, I'm definitely. That was the perfect timing, actually.
Chat. I'm back.
Because you join parties without asking, and
Oh, my
you
phone's
almost
still
just
on.
interrupted.
I had to mute it anyways.
Thankfully.
Dude, that death run's crazy, man. It's pretty hard.
Yeah, how was that? I saw you were on level 2 for a while.
Yeah, that shit. That's one of those things where it's like, it's a set pattern to do it. If you don't know the pattern beforehand, you're gonna get fucked in the ass. It's one of those things. Like, the guy who I was playing with, he knew, like, the patterns, like, oh, you have to look down here, you have to do a running start for these. I've never seen that before in my life, and honestly, I was on my computer, I'm not gonna lie, whenever you were reading your thing, I was looking at my YouTube channel, going through that shit, and I was just on my computer, like, going through emails and shit. And I was just, like, every time I would die, I would just type some more, and then I'd pick up my controller. Alright, chat, I hope you enjoyed the reading stream. We're ending the stream, I'm gonna stream tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out. Chat, I'll see you guys.